I didn't think a $12,000 cabin could turn into a disaster. I thought it would turn into a second chance. The county's tax auction site looked like a junkyard of dreams. One thumbnail stopped me cold. Timber Ridge Estates, Lot 42. 2 acres of Colorado pines wrapped around a beat-up A-frame. The roof was sunburnt. The deck leaned like a drunk. Weeds were waving at the driveway. Starting bid $8,000. To most folks, that's a hard pass. To a contractor who lost half his life in a no-fault divorce and is sleeping in a studio that smells like menthols, that's a prayer with a price tag. I did the boring stuff nobody puts on Instagram. Pulled the assessor record, traced the deed chain, got a letter from a title company saying they'd issue post-sale coverage because tax auctions wipe prior liens. One catch: buyer responsible for possession. Translation: you'll own it on paper. If there are people, you'll need a judge. No other bidders. I won at $12,000 even. Monday morning, the clerk stamped my deed. Timber Ridge is a property owners association, not a fancy gated HOA. They keep the road plowed, run a community well, mail dues statements with cheerful fonts. The covenant said no junkers, no short-term rentals without approval. Keep your place presentable. I could live with that. 3 weeks later, Blue Sky Saturday, I headed up with Miguel riding shotgun. He's my foreman 8 years running, a guy who can eyeball a 2A6 and tell you if it's true. Boss, he said, squinting at the materials list. County auction specials are either rotten or haunted. I grinned. That's why it was $12,000. We'll make it 60. One more turn through the ponderosas, and my foot hit the brake like it had a mind of its own. There were 3 cars in my driveway. A white Range Rover with a Namaste sticker, a silver Subaru with a busted taillight, and a mud-brown Tacoma parked like it paid rent. Fresh paint on the cabin, kids' bikes on their sides in the yard, wood smoke drifting from my chimney. Boss, Miguel said softly. I see it. We parked on the road shoulder. I walked up with a manila folder tucked under my arm, recorded deed, tax sale certificate, assessor printout with my name where Harold Brennan used to be. He was the prior owner. County file said he'd stopped paying taxes 3 winters ago and died in January. No heirs. Property marketed as abandoned. Before my knuckles reached the wood, the door swung open. A woman in yoga pants and a zip hoodie took me in over a mug that said, Best Mom. Bleached hair pulled back. Makeup precise. A smile you use when your latte is wrong and it's somebody else's fault. Can I help you? She asked. Morning, I said. I'm Jake. I own this cabin. I held out the deed. She glanced down, then laughed like I'd brought her a magic trick. Oh, sweetie, we've been living here over a year. Adverse possession. Look it up. Adverse possession in Colorado is 18 years, I said. Nice and even. Continuous, open, notorious, exclusive. And since 2008, you need a good faith belief you own it. Her smile didn't move. We're residents. You're trespassing. A tall kid with a hoodie and a scraggly beard hovered behind her, arms crossed, eyes red. I kept my hands visible, my voice low. Do you have any paperwork? Lease? Rental agreement? She tilted her head like a cat. Tyler, call the sheriff, she said without looking away. This man is harassing us. The smell of something frying drifted from the kitchen. My kitchen? Wood smoke curled from my chimney. Sunlight lit a brand new deck railing I didn't approve in a colour I would never choose. 20 minutes later, a Teller-County cruiser eased up the gravel. The deputy who got out smiled at her. Brenda, he said, and hugged her like they've bumped into each other at bake sales. What's going on? This man claims he owns our home, she said, voice trembling like she found the tear switch on her cheek. We've been caring for it since before Harold passed. I held out the folder. He glanced without taking it. Sir, he said, like he'd just found a warning label for me. Colorado law is clear about tenant rights. You can't harass residents. If there's a dispute, it's civil. You'll need to go to court. They're not tenants, I said. I bought this 3 weeks ago at tax auction. No lease, no permission. That's for a judge, he said. Right now, I'm asking you to leave before this escalates. How do I defend my property if I can't step on it? You file and fed. We'll execute the writ when you win. But if you come back and cause a disturbance, I'll cite you for harassment. He turned back to her like gravity was over there. You okay? You want resources? She nodded bravely. She still hadn't shown me a single piece of paper. We walked back to the truck. The wood smoke from my chimney followed me like a joke I didn't want to hear twice. Miguel closed his door gently, like a loud noise might crack me. What just happened? He asked. I own it, I said, staring at a wreath that spelled home in cursive. And I can't go inside. My phone buzzed before we hit the pavement. Email from Timber Ridge Estates POA. Subject line, compliance notice. It was addressed to owner of record. My name, my lot number, bold as truth. 3 violations: exterior deterioration, parking, unapproved occupants. Failure to cure may result in fines under FOA 7.2. You ever feel a laugh crawl up your throat, but it's not funny? That's what that felt like. I'm the owner getting fined for unapproved occupants. I didn't approve. Here's what I didn't do. I didn't go back to the door and start yelling. I didn't post in the neighborhood group with a caps lock manifesto. I sat in the passenger seat while Miguel drove and made a list in my head called receipts. Because feelings don't win court. Paper does. Back at my studio, I turned the kitchen table into a war room. Recorded deed with the clerk's stamp big as a knuckle. Title insurer's letter. Tax sale clears prior liens. Post-sale owner's policy available. Buyer responsible for possession. Parcel map with lot 42 circled. Covenants printed and highlighted. Short-term rental ban under FOA 4.3. A Colorado Bar Association summary of adverse possession with 18 years yellowed. I stacked them into a blue folder like armor. First call Monday was the assessor. I gave the parcel APN my name, the recording date. Ownership shows Lawrence, Jake E., recorded on the 18th, the clerk said, clicking like a typewriter. No homestead filing on that parcel. Our records show the subdivision's water operator activated service 8 months ago. We don't keep names, just dates. Can I get an affidavit of ownership as of recording? I asked. We have a standard form, she said, and emailed it before we hung up. Second call, the water operator listed in the welcome packet that came with my dues statement. And the compliance letter. Lot 42 shows activation 8 months ago, he said. Billing address is a P.O. box in Woodland Park. No prior activation the last 26 months. I can write that if you want. Please do, I said. That letter hit my inbox in minutes. There was one more browser tab to open. The internet rumor mill. Brenda had pushed her story into 3 local Facebook groups by dinner. Corporate flipper tries to steal single mum's home. A GoFundMe link with a photo of the cabin and her teenage daughter holding a sign, "Don't make us homeless." Comments were pure gasoline. Predatory landlord. This is what's wrong with America. Stay strong, Brenda. I didn't take the bait. I took screenshots with timestamps. Then I typed "mountain getaway retreat" into Airbnb and got the no longer available message scammers love. That's why the Wayback Machine exists. Cash hit. Photos of my living room with a different rug. My deck with that new railing. 149 night weekdays, 175 on weekends. Lots of hearts from guests who liked rustic charm. I printed it all. The next email I opened was from the POA. Owner contact requested. Dear Mr. Lawrence, it read, we have received complaints regarding lot 42. Noise, unapproved occupancy, exterior condition. Please submit an occupancy plan and renovation schedule for board review. Refrain from actions that may escalate disputes. I breathed. Then I wrote back, as of recording date, I am fee simple owner of lot 42, deed attached. I did not authorize current occupants. Demand for possession has been served. Forcible entry and detainer and motion for temporary restraining order against waste illegal rentals filed. Hearing date time. I request a pause on enforcement against me for actions of unauthorized occupants until possession is decided. Copies of complaints minutes and confirmation of board policy for title possession disputes. I CC'd the property manager, the POA's counsel and my attorney. And yes, I got an attorney. His name's Leon. He's the kind of guy whose bookshelf is organized by win percentage. We served a demand for possession notice to quit on Brenda at the door and posted a copy as backup. Colorado gives you 3 business days for non-tenants. When the clock ran out, we filed FED, forcible entry and detainer, with a motion to expedite. We attached the deed, assessor affidavit, title letter, water activation letter, the demand with proof of service, covenant pages with the STR ban highlighted, and my declaration describing the driveway, and the deputy who hugged first and read later. We also filed a motion for temporary restraining order to stop waste and illegal rentals while the case was pending, and asked for a neutral site inspection with a sheriff's civil deputy present. I've seen the emergency repairs trick before. Holes punched at shoulder height and a cell phone video framed tight to look like neglect. Paper beats that. So does a deputy with a body cam. While the judge scheduled our hearing, I sent a tidy, facts-only packet to the reporter who'd aired Brenda's sob story. I'm the corporate investor, I wrote. Here's my deed. assessor affidavit, covenants, water activation letter, and court notices. Please update your story to reflect there's a title and possession case. I didn't ask for an apology. I gave them a path back to the facts. 5 hours later, their site had an update. County records show disputed cabins sold at tax auction. Hearing scheduled. The GoFundMe went under review. The comments cooled off like somebody turned a fan on them. By the end of the week, the POA's council wrote back, "The board does not determine title or adjudicate possession. We will pause assessment of fines related to actions of the current occupants until the possession action is resolved. Please submit an occupancy plan upon regaining possession." Not a hug, but the right sentence. That night, a 7/19 number texted me, "You mess with our home again and you'll regret it. Last warning." Screenshot. Folder. Forward to Leon. My bank called in the morning. Someone tried to file a fraudulent ACH charge against my account, claiming I wrote bad checks on property I didn't own. They flagged it and shut it down. If you're waiting for the moment where I knocked everything off my kitchen table and screamed into the void, no. I stacked paper until the stack made a sound when you tapped it. I called the sheriff's civil unit to ask how writ day works with a private road. "We coordinate with the association," the clerk said. "The writ is a court order. They open the gate." And then the POA posted a notice for an owner forum to discuss community concerns about Lot 42 and enforcement policy, which could be a kangaroo court. Or it could be sunlight. I printed 15 copies of my packet. I was done arguing in driveways. I was ready to read in rooms. What would you do if you bought a place and found strangers living inside? Call a deputy, call a lawyer, call your HOA, drop your state and tell me your first move, because the next part is where receipts meet a gavel. The clubhouse smelled like burnt coffee and printer toner. Folding chairs scraped concrete. People came because they love a story more than a budget, and my lot number had turned into both. I brought 15 blue folders, one-page handouts on what adverse possession actually is in Colorado, and a calm I had to practice on the drive over. The board president banged a gavel she bought online and called it an owner forum. I called it sunlight. "Before we debate," I said, standing with a stack, "everyone needs the same facts." I started handing out packets like hymnals, recorded deed with the clerk's stamp, title insurer's letter, assessor affidavit, water activation letter, 8 months ago, not 18 years. Covenants with the short-term rental ban highlighted. Cached screenshots of mountain getaway retreat using photos of my cabin. Court notices. Demand served, Fed filed, TRO hearing scheduled. People flipped pages. Eyebrows went up in the third row. A guy in a ball cap said, "That's his deed." A woman in a denim jacket, the same one who'd shouted from her porch when I got, told to leave my own driveway, nodded slow like she was adjusting her opinion. In real time, the president tried to steer. "We're here to discuss community standards." "Standards are fine," I said. "Weaponizing enforcement against a brand new owner while unauthorized occupants throw parties is not. I'm asking for 2 things. 1, a pause on fines against the owner during active title or possession litigation. 2, a vendor policy so we don't end up paying for security without licenses or disclosures." A few heads turned at that. I held up a printout the manager had sent me after my records request. "Your financials include a charge, security, patrol prep, $600, no vendor listed. The July minutes say, visible deterrence can curb problems. We must make an example where appropriate." That's not a policy. That's a phrase that gets people sued. The association's lawyer, sitting 2 seats down from the president, cleared his throat. "For what it's worth, the association's authority is limited. We enforce covenants. We do not adjudicate title or possession. Adopting a pause on fines during litigation is a prudent risk management step. As to vendors, I recommend license and insurance verification, competitive bids above a threshold, and conflict of interest disclosures." "Who was the security vendor?" someone asked from the back. The manager fumbled a sheet. "Aspen Ridge Compliance, LLC. And the owner?" someone else asked. She swallowed. "Registered agent is Daniel Peterson. Any relation to the president?" A voice said, flat as a hammer. The president gripped the gavel. "He's my brother," she said. "He gave us a discount." You could feel the room sit down without moving. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. "Okay," I said finally, not letting the moment turn into a pile-on. "Let's fix it. Vote on the pause policy at your next regular meeting. Vote on a vendor policy with license insurance checks and no family contracts. And while my case runs, Don't fine me for actions I didn't authorize. The court decides who belongs. You decide how not to make it worse, the lawyer nodded. We'll draft language and publish it before the vote. A hand went up near the door. I've got a ring cam. Caught the day he showed up. He didn't yell. He held papers. The deputy told him to leave. He scrolled, found the clip, and held it up like a mirror. Thank you, I said. My hearing is next week. If you're willing to sign a short statement, I'll include it. The forum wound down with less shouting than I expected. Paper does that to rooms. Walking out, the president caught up to me. We were trying to protect the neighborhood, she said, eyes glassy. Protect it with process, I said. Not with cousins. On my way home, my phone buzzed. A padded envelope sat propped against my studio door under the faded welcome mat that only ever welcomed the mailman. No return address. Inside, printed screenshots of the deleted Airbnb listing. A booking calendar with 14 stays circled. And a PayPal image. $600 to B. Hutchkins. Memo, cabin weekend. Handwritten on a sticky note. She scammed my sister. Make her stop. I scanned it all, saved it under Exhibits Rental, and emailed a redacted copy to the TV reporter as a follow-up. New receipts, I wrote. Court hearing still on. The next morning, the property manager emailed, tone professional as cut granite. Per council, the board will not levy fines against Lot 42 for conditions related to the current occupants until the court resolves possession. Draft enforcement pause and vendor policies will be noticed for the next meeting. I replied with 2 words. Thank you. It wasn't gratitude. It was a record. The courthouse was 3 stories of beige and fluorescent. The air was stale. The PA announced cases like a bored DJ. And the clerk stamped everything with a thunk that felt like a bass drum in a song you needed to end. Our TRO hearing was on for next week, but Leon wanted to make sure the file was clean, so we dropped off a supplemental declaration, the security patrol prep charge, the minutes with make an example, the manager's admission that the vendor belonged to the president's brother, the Airbnb screenshots, the PayPal receipt. We summarized in a sentence judges like because it's easy to underline. The owner seeks to preserve the property and halt illegal rentals. The board is now pausing fines. We asked the court to order a neutral inspection with a sheriff's civil deputy present, so condition is documented. Back in the lot, Miguel leaned against the truck, like a break he earned. You think they'll show? He asked. They'll send counsel, I said. That's enough. On the way down the mountain, I stopped at Murphy's Hardware. Frank looked up from a bin of lag bolts and grunted. You stirred up a nest, he said. It was already stirred, I said. I'm just holding a flashlight. I asked him to print the invoices Brenda had signed. Sage green paint, deck screws, sander rental. He photocopied them, scrawled no payment at the bottom and slid them across. You getting your place back? He asked. I'm getting it documented, I said. Then I'm getting it back. 2 days later, the station posted a second update online. GoFundMe suspended pending review. Court to hear restraining order request. The comments shifted tone from pitchforks to questions. Wait, what is adverse possession really? 18 years in Colorado, not 1. If there's a deed, why is the sheriff telling him to leave? Because deputies don't adjudicate title, someone replied. Courts do. A little sunlight goes a long way. I spent the weekend building witness statements with anyone on the street who would sign one. Victor, the kid who had been filming that first day, sent me the full clip with a clean audio track. You can hear me say, do you have any documentation? Lease, rental agreement. You can hear Brenda tell her son to call the sheriff. You can't hear me yelling because I wasn't. Sunday night, my phone lit up with an unknown number. When I answered, a voice I didn't know said, she's telling people the judge already gave her the house. Good, I said. Tell those people to come to court and hear what the judge actually says. Monday morning, Leon called. Opposing counsel filed a motion to stay the Fed. Judge set it with your TRO. We'll kill both birds. The way he said it made it sound like clerical work. I bought donuts for the civil unit because small kindnesses grease gears you'll need later. And then I sat on my studio floor with my blue folder open and practiced saying the same 4 facts without adjectives. I'm the owner of record. Utilities were activated 8 months ago. Covenants prohibit short-term rentals. We're asking for a TRO against waste and illegal rentals and a neutral inspection with a sheriff's civil deputy present. No speeches. Just the spine. Brenda tried one more thing in the court of public opinion. A neighborhood post went up with a photo of my truck, still faintly stained where someone had spray-painted Predator over the fender, captioned, "This man is harassing a family." The comments weren't what she wanted this time. "He has a deed. Court date is public. If you're right, show your paperwork." Silence from her account. Then the post vanished. In the middle of all that, the POA sent a new email. Regular board meeting agenda posted. Policy items include enforcement pause during litigation and vendor conflicts policy. Attached draft language read clean. The association shall pause enforcement actions against the owner of record during pending title or possession litigation for conditions created by unauthorized occupants until the court issues an order regarding possession. And the association shall not contract with a vendor owned by or employing an immediate family member of any board member or manager. All vendors must provide evidence of licensure and insurance. Competitive bids are required above $2,500 absent emergency. It wasn't perfect. It was a start I didn't have to fight for in the next person's story. When the TRO day finally arrived, I buttoned my only decent shirt and left early. Outside the courtroom, opposing counsel tried a smile too wide and a handshake too soft. "Let's be reasonable," he said. "My clients just want time." "They've had time," I said. "This keeps them from breaking things while we wait for the possession hearing." Inside, the judge called our case. We stood. The air was stale. The clock ticked loud enough to hear your own heart. Leon said the words I'd practiced. Owner of record, utilities, 8 months, STR ban, illegal listings, request for TRO against waste, and a neutral inspection with the sheriff's civil deputy present. Opposing counsel tried the tenant protections script again. The judge cut it short. "This is not a tenancy," she said. "No lease, no sufferance. This is a post-tax sale possession dispute. Adverse possession in Colorado requires 18 years and good faith since 2008. 8 months and Airbnb listings do not constitute good faith." She granted the TRO for 14 days, barred any rental or marketing, prohibited alterations or removal of fixtures, authorized a neutral inspection with the civil unit, and warned of contempt for violations. She denied the motion to stay the Fed with a one-line order that hit like a clean nail. Denied for lack of legal basis. Walking out, we scheduled the inspection for the following Tuesday at 10 a.m. The civil deputy, Rowe, would meet us at the gate. "Bring a phone and eyes," Leon said. "We're going to make a record no one can talk around." On the drive home, I thought about that first day on the deck and how badly I wanted to bang on my own door and tell people to get out. I thought about how easy that would have made it for them to paint me as the problem, and I thought about every line of ink that had gotten us from a Range Rover hug to a court order with my name at the top and theirs at the bottom. Sometimes, the only way to make a room honest is to drag the facts into it and make them sit in the front row. Next up was the inspection. Deputy Rowe, a body cam, and every new hole they punched, becoming another receipt with a timestamp. Deputy Rowe met us at the Timber Ridge gate like we'd actually prepared for this moment together. No small talk, just a nod that said we were all about to do our jobs. "IDs," she said, holding out a hand like a habit. She checked mine, Leon's, and opposing counsel's. Brenda didn't show. Tyler did, dragging his feet like a kid asked to carry out the trash. "Ground rules," she continued, calm and specific. "No one touches anything unless I say so. I photograph first. You speak when spoken to. The purpose is to document current condition and preserve evidence." "You got me?" We got her. Tyler unlocked the door with a key he'd never had a right to. The air inside hit like old soap and new lies. Deputy Rowe flicked her body cam and started a running log. Timeline, 10:02 a.m. Location, Lot 42, Timber Ridge. Present, owner, owner's counsel, opposing counsel, occupant's relative, deputy. She moved through the kitchen first. The sink cabinet was damp. She crouched, ran a finger under the P-trap, and then up to the compression nut. It turned with 2 fingers. "That's not a leak," she said, jotting on a pad. "That's loosed." She took 3 photos. Nut, drip, bowl. "Owner, shut off these valves for me," she ordered. I did. She marked the handles with a Sharpie, so no one could argue about what was on and what was off when we left. The living room looked like someone had argued with the drywall and lost. Circular holes at shoulder height, edges bright white with dust still clinging to the carpet. "Fresh," she said into the mic. "Edges sharp, dust present." She waved Leon closer to point at the pattern. Someone swung here and here. No stud near either hit. You don't get this from a house falling apart. In the hallway, A mirror was cracked dead center, a spiderweb radiating out like a lesson none of us wanted. Impact from the inside, she narrated. She marked it with a small adhesive tag and shot another set of photos. In the front bedroom closet, she paused at the ceiling hatch. Pry marks marred the sheetrock around the edge. Beneath it, a stack of contractor bags sat tied with painter's tape. "What's in those?" she asked without looking at Tyler. "Insulation," he said, voice stiff. "We're opening one," she said, gloving up. She slit the tape and peeled back black plastic. "Not insulation, papers. Mail with Harold Brennan in block letters. An old life insurance notice addressed to him. A bank flyer. Printed check-in instructions for mountain getaway retreat with a Wi-Fi password and a list of house rules." She spread a few pages like she was laying out a map. "You shouldn't have this," she said, and looked at opposing counsel. "We'll take custody for evidence preservation. Everyone okay with that?" No one argued, because what would they say? She slid the stack into a clear bag, labeled it with time and location, and had me initial it. "Chain of custody," she said softly. Out on the deck, a half-empty gallon of paint sat with the lid askew, the exact sage green I'd seen on Frank's invoice. The label read a brand and color code I didn't need to memorize. I already had it in my folder. She photographed the can and the barcode, then the new rail, then the cut-offs tossed in a corner that didn't match any reasonable repair plan. We circled the house. A window on the south side had cracks that spoke in straight lines. "Shattered outward?" Leon asked. She crouched, studied the glass on the ground, the bevel of the brakes. "No," she said, tapping her pen against the pane. "From inside out. Debris outside, but the impact point is inside. Someone hit from the interior." Tyler hovered 5 feet back, trying to invent a story. "Old house," he said again. "Things break." She didn't even look at him. "Things break," she agreed. "Not like this." Inside again, the bathroom vanity had a drawer missing. In its place, a nest of wires like someone had started to wire a light where no light belonged. She took another photo. "Unauthorized alterations," she murmured, and I knew we'd be stapling that phrase to emotion before the ink was dry on anything else. "Any rental activity since the TRO?" she asked. "No," opposing counsel said too quickly. She gestured at the kitchen counter. I pointed to a printed binder I hadn't noticed on the first pass. "Mountain Getaway Guest Book," the cover said. Bubble letters and mountain clip art. She flipped open to the first page. "Loved our stay, cozy and clean. Brenda is the best host." Dates from 5 months back. One page had a note that made my throat heat. "So glad this place wasn't snatched by rich people." She photographed the book front to back and slid it into the bag with the other papers. At the end, she stood in the middle of the living room and ran through a quick summary for her mic. Multiple indications of recent intentional damage. Loosened compression nut under sink. Fresh drywall strikes with particulate on carpet. Shattered mirror. Interior strike to south window. Evidence of rental. Guest book. Printed check-in instructions. Documents addressed to deceased prior owner collected for preservation. "No short-term rental guests present at time of inspection. Owner present," TRO explained. "Occupant relative warned not to alter or rent." She clicked the camera off like she was setting down the day. On the porch, she slipped me a card. "Email me if anything happens. Do not confront. Call us," she said. She tilted her head at opposing counsel. "Tell your clients that any fix-it video they post after this inspection will be a contempt hearing." We filed a supplemental declaration that afternoon with her body cam excerpts, her photo log, and my own shots. We attached the guest book photos, the printed house rules, the utility activation letter, and the cached booking pages with dates circled like bullseyes. Leon sent subpoenas to Airbnb and to the payment processor listed on the PayPal screenshot. He also sent a narrower demand to the water operator for the billing address confirmation. Sometimes the details are nothing. Sometimes P.O. Box 611 is the string you pull that unravels the whole sweater. Within a week, Airbnb's legal department replied with that dry corporate prose I've learned to respect. Enclosed are responsive documents in connection with subpoena number X. Listings associated with the subject property address include Mountain Getaway Retreat. Enclosed, host profile data, listing creation date, deactivation date, booking history, and gross payout amounts to host's connected payment account. The ledger was simple and ugly. 14 bookings in 5 months. Gross payouts just over $6,300. Host email matching Brenda's name from the POA's welcome packet, and the payout account, surprise, a PayPal handle that matched the screenshot I'd received in that anonymous envelope. Good faith, Leon said, dry as the Rockies in December. She'll never be able to say those words in a courtroom. Brenda tried to stay busy in the two places that still listened to her, the sheriff's report intake line and the neighborhood rumor mill. 2 false reports landed in the public system alleging I'd threatened through the door and damaged the home the day of our inspection. Dates didn't match. One overlapped our inspection with Deputy Rowe on scene. We pulled both reports, highlighted the conflicts, and filed them under a label that should make anyone's stomach turn: malicious prosecution. In the neighborhood group, a new post went up with a grainy shot of my truck and a caption that called me dangerous. It lasted 20 minutes before someone replied with a screenshot of the court's docket and asked, "If you're right, why won't you show your paperwork?" The post vanished shortly after. The POA's counsel sent over draft policy language that read like something we'd actually be proud to mail to a new owner. The association shall pause enforcement actions against the owner of record during pending title or possession litigation for conditions created by unauthorized occupants, and the association shall not contract with any vendor owned by or employing an immediate family member of any board member or manager. All vendors must provide evidence of licensure and insurance. Competitive bids required for contracts above $2,500 absent a documented emergency. I marked 2 commas and signed off in spirit. It wasn't my job to edit their grammar. It was my job to make sure this never happened again. A padded envelope arrived at my studio with a return address this time, a local accounting office. Inside was a single-page printout, a copy of a homestead exemption application form with Brenda H. typed in and my parcel number written in the margin. It wasn't filed, but the edges had the dirty fingerprints of someone who'd practiced filling it out. I sent Leon a photo. He whistled. She was going to try to grab the tax break too. Ambitious. He added it to a bullet point he was sharpening for the possession hearing. On the calendar, days moved like chess. The clerk set our possession hearing for 2 Thursdays out. The civil unit scheduled writ posting for the day after, assuming judgment. Deputy Rowe called to confirm the logistics. If the writ posts, they have 48 hours to vacate. If they don't, you'll need a locksmith, a small crew, and boxes. Inventory personal property and place it per our directive. Don't toss, don't taunt. Call us if you see anything dangerous. The night before the hearing, I slept like a man who had memorized his lines and didn't need to perform them. Owner of record. Utilities 8 months. STR ban. Illegal rentals documented. Neutral inspection with deputy. TRO in place. Motion to stay. Denied on law. It was all right there. Black on white. Staple through the top. 2 more things happened before I walked into that courtroom. The reporter who had posted the sob story called and asked if I'd go on record after the hearing with whatever the judge ordered. I said yes, but only if we stick to documents, not adjectives. And the man in the ball cap from the forum slipped a folded piece of paper under my studio door. If the judge needs me, I'll be there. I saw you hold your papers. I saw her refuse to show hers. Sometimes you don't need a speech. You need a neighbor. On hearing day, opposing counsel tried a different angle, asked for a reasonable stay for school-aged children, a humane timeline. The judge looked over her glasses at the booking ledger we'd submitted from Airbnb and the guest book with comments about girls' weekends and best mountain birthday ever, and said, the humane timeline was the day you decided not to move in. She granted possession, entered a money judgment for fair rental value from the demand date to judgment, reserved damages for waste, authorized the writ, and denied the stay. Her gavel sounded like closure. Back in the hallway, Leon handed me a copy of the order. Tomorrow, writ posting, he said. 48 hours later, we move. Bring a locksmith. Bring 3 guys and a truck. Bring patience. Outside, I took a breath that didn't taste like menthols anymore. Timber Ridge looked different in my mind than it had the day I stood at my own door and got told to leave. Not because a miracle had happened, because paper had done what paper does when you stack it taller than someone's lies. Writ day would feel like a staple and a sigh. After that, it would be paint and screws and a morning where the porch light came on because it was supposed to, not because a car you didn't invite pulled into a drive you paid for. If you've ever walked into a house with a deputy and a camera and watched your own walls tell the truth, you know exactly what came next. If you haven't, listen close. The next part is the one most people get wrong. You don't pound your chest. You make an inventory. You change the locks. You wave at the neighbor who showed up to watch, and you get on with the business of putting things where they belong. Deputy Rowe posted the writ just after 9 a.m. Orange paper taped dead center on my door like a verdict you could read from the road. She took a time-stamped photo for the file, nodded to me, and gave the same speech I'd already memorized. 48 hours. Vacate voluntarily, or we'll be back with a locksmith and a crew. Do not touch the bagged documents we secured at inspection. Any damage between now and then will be contempt on top of everything else. Tyler stood on the deck with his arms crossed, like that posture could hold up a court order. He read the orange paper, glanced at me, and smirked like a kid who just learned the word consequences. Doesn't apply to him. You can't just, he started. Deputy Rowe raised a hand without looking at him. We can. It's here. You have 48 hours. They didn't leave. 48 hours later, I rolled up with a locksmith, 3 guys I'd hired from a clean-out crew, a stack of banker boxes, and a rented box truck. It felt less like a triumph, and more like a job you do right, so you can sleep later. Deputy Rowe met us at the gate with a second deputy and walked the perimeter first, checking windows, noting anything new. She didn't say much. That's how you know the day is going to end the way it's supposed to. Here's the rhythm, she said on the porch. We announce, we enter with the locksmith, we inventory. You place personal property per our directive. Driveway, neatly, tarped. Or, if they request, into storage at their expense. No tossing. No taunting. If I say stop, we stop. The locksmith popped the deadbolt in under a minute, swapped the cylinder, and handed me 3 new keys, while the deputy read the writ out loud. Tyler shuffled out with a duffel and a look that wanted to be tough. Brenda showed up 10 minutes late. Range Rover flung into the drive like she could park on top of a court order and make it go away. She marched up, pointed at me, and launched into the performance I'd already seen twice. You can't do this. This is harassment. We have rights. She took a step toward the deputy, like she was going to make it personal. You had 48 hours, Rowe said, flat as a ruler. You didn't use them. You have 10 minutes to gather essential personal items. The rest will be inventoried and placed per directive. After that, you are trespassed. Any re-entry will get you arrested. My crew worked like pros. We called out what we moved. Box, kitchen, pots, box, bedroom, clothes, TV, living room. I wrote it all down on a clipboard like it mattered because it does. We tarped the pile in the driveway and weighed the corners with cinder blocks so a gust wouldn't turn their things into a neighborhood problem. I didn't touch the guest book or the folder of house rules. Those were already logged as evidence. We took a last pass under Deputy Rowe's eyes to make sure nothing that could be called essential stayed behind. Then I did the 3 things on every writ day checklist, changed the locks on every door, put no trespassing signs at eye level by the path, and took photographs of every room post-move, timestamps visible on the screen. Brenda hovered on the edge of the yard, trying to bait a camera that wasn't there. She tried one more line. My lawyer will fix this. You'll be sued. The deputy handed her a trespass notice instead. You are not allowed on this property. Without the owner's written permission, she said, neat and bored as a library card. You violated a TRO, you ignored a writ, and you committed a whole lot of illegal rentals in between. Go home. They left in a convoy that blew dust across the drive and didn't look back. Inside, the house looked exactly like what it was, a place used by people who never intended to own it. We stood in the living room, me, Miguel, the crew, and Deputy Rowe, and breathed. Then we got to work without speeches. We bagged debris. We capped the loosened P-trap and taped a note to it. Verified tight, post-writ. We pulled 3 new sheets of drywall from the truck and cut patches where someone had punched through just to make a point. We rolled a coat of primer over the worst of it, because going to bed with holes in the walls makes your brain feel the same way. It wasn't about making it pretty, it was about making it mine again, inch by inch. By late afternoon, the place was quiet enough to hear myself think. I called the water operator and the power company to flip accounts. I put a motion on Leon's desk for damages, waste beyond normal wear and tear, with Deputy Rowe's photo log and inspection notes stapled to the front. We had 14 bookings, totaling just over $6,300. We had $15,000 in damage estimates. We had a money judgment for fair rental value from the demand date to judgment. We weren't guessing anymore, we were itemizing. The POA's regular meeting that week felt different. Not like a trial, like a fix. The enforcement pause policy came up for a vote and passed 6-1. The vendor policy passed unanimously with an explicit line that made everyone in the room look at the president and then at their own feet. The association shall not contract with any vendor owned by or employing an immediate family member of any board member or manager. The conflict of interest form got adopted and signed right there. Someone in the back asked if the security patrol prep money was coming back to the operating account. The treasurer said yes. No one clapped. They just exhaled. Saturday, the neighborhood showed up with gloves. Frank from Murphy's dropped 2 bundles of drywall and a stack of studs. The guy in the ball cap lugged his compressor. A kid named Victor, the one who'd filmed that first day, helped haul a new vanity from the truck and asked where to set it. I told him the bathroom. He laughed. Yeah, but which house? He said. And then his face changed and he said, sorry. He didn't have to be sorry. It wasn't his mess. It was ours to fix. Lisa from the diner put a folding table on the deck and covered it with sandwiches like they grow on mountains. The president came with no gavel and a sheet of paper. Will you look at the language? She asked. Make sure it protects the next person like it's protecting you. I read it. I circled 1 comma, then handed it back. It'll hold, I said. By dusk, the living room didn't feel like a crime scene. It felt like a place where you could sit down on a Tuesday night and not listen for someone else's keys. Miguel marked the last patch and said, 2 coats tomorrow, trim on Tuesday. We'll stain the deck next weekend. That tone, routine forward, was the first real relief I'd felt since the day a woman in yoga pants told me to look up a law she hadn't read. The DA's office sent a letter setting a restitution hearing. The Airbnb records turned into an audit. The civil case for damages ran alongside a plea for criminal mischief. I didn't have to be angry. I had to be thorough. There's a difference, and it's the difference between a story you tell and a life you get to live in. At the next POA meeting, they mailed the policy changes as an insert with quarterly dues. Section 7.3. Enforcement pause during title or possession litigation for conditions created by unauthorized occupants. Annex B. Vendor policy with license and insurance checks. Competitive bids above $2,500. No relatives of board or management. Conflict form signed, dates fresh. It didn't erase what happened to me. It meant the next person didn't have to fight for the same sentence in the same room. A week after writ day, I sat on the deck with a coffee that didn't taste like adrenaline anymore and watched light move across the ridge. The porch light clicked on at dusk because I told it to, not because a Range Rover pulled into my driveway. I changed the door code to a number no one else would guess and stuck a sticky note on the fridge that said, "Don't forget to breathe. If you've been here, if you've stood in your own doorway, with a deputy at your shoulder and felt relief hit you like gravity coming back, drop your state in the comments and tell me the one receipt that flipped your case. Was it a utility start date? A cached rental listing? A neighbor statement? If you're about to be here, listen close to the last part. It's not a sermon. It's a checklist I wish someone had handed me before I clicked bid. Because the house is quiet now, but the lesson is loud. Cheap can be expensive if you bring no plan, and HOA letters can be harmless if you know exactly what sentence to hand back. When they forget, they're not a court. A week later, the DA's office set a restitution hearing for damages and illegal rentals. I didn't bring anger. I brought invoices. Deputy Rowe's photo log. The Airbnb ledger with 14 bookings and just over $6,300 in payouts. A contractor estimate for drywall, plumbing, glass, and a new vanity. The judge didn't ask for adjectives. He asked for totals. He awarded fair rental value from the demand date to judgment. restitution for waste, and set a payment schedule. Brenda stared at the floor. Tyler tried on defiance and couldn't keep it. When it was over, the clerk stamped the order, and the only sound in my head was relief taking up space where noise used to live. Back on the ridge, routine took the wheel. Primer dried. 2 coats went up. Trim snapped into place like apologies you're not waiting for anymore. We ran stain on the deck in long, patient strokes, while the sun hid behind a cloud and let us get it done in one pass. I added a deadbolt with a code only I would remember and put a list on the inside of the utility closet door that started with water shutoffs and ended with breathe. The board mailed the new policies with the quarterly statements. It felt small on paper and huge in practice. A 1-page pause during litigation rule means the next owner won't open their mail and find a fine for people they didn't invite. The vendor policy with license and insurance checks and a bright line no relatives rule means visible. Deterrence can't be code for, hi my brother. The conflict forms went into a folder that will outlast everyone's term limits. Process is boring right up until the day it keeps your life from blowing up. Neighbours didn't talk about my case much after that. They talked about potholes and the plough fund and whether we should replace the old wooden sign by the road with one that doesn't look like it was carved by a beaver. The best outcome isn't a parade. It's a Tuesday. If you came here for a sermon, I don't have one. I have a list I wish someone had handed me before I clicked bid, written in the kind of pen that doesn't smear when you sweat. 1. Before you bid, pull the assessor record, the deed chain, and the parcel map. Call a title company and get a letter that says they'll insure post-sale and that the tax auction extinguishes prior liens. If they won't write it, don't write your check. 2. Read the covenants. Circle short-term rental rules, exterior standards, and enforcement procedures. Call the manager and ask, do you have a policy for enforcement during title or possession litigation? If the answer is a shrug, know that you may be the first test case. 3. Call utilities. In a subdivision like this, start with the water operator. Ask activation dates, not names. A date 8 months ago will do more for you than 100 comments under a Facebook post. 4. Walk the street. Ask 2 neighbours what they've seen. Ask if anyone has doorbell footage. Ask for their email so you can send a 1-paragraph statement later. Don't be weird. Be the person they'll sign something for. 5. Have your forms ready. Demand for possession. Forcible entry and detainer. A TRO template that asks the court to bar rentals and waste and to authorize a neutral inspection with a deputy. You don't need to be a lawyer. You need a lawyer who files these before lunch. 6. Don't touch. Don't threaten. Don't get clever with door hinges or light switches. Serve. File. Wait for the writ. Write down everything in a notebook you don't throw away. 7. Collect receipts, not sympathy. Deed with the stamp, title letter, assessor affidavit, utility activation letter, cached rental listings with dates, watermarked photos of damage, court notices. Put them in a cheap blue folder and treat it like it's more valuable than your opinion. 8. If your POA sends a compliance letter while strangers are inside, reply once, calmly. Attach your deed and hearing notice. Ask them to pause enforcement until possession is decided. Put their answer in your folder. If there's no answer, that's an answer too. 9. On writ day, bring a locksmith. 3 good humans. Boxes, tarps, a phone charger, water, and patience. Inventory everything. Photograph every room after. Change locks. Post no trespassing where people will actually see it. Call utilities to flip the accounts. Go to bed. 10. When it's quiet again, help write the policy you needed last month. If they'll let you, put your fingerprints on the sentence that protects the next person. If they won't, show up anyway. I've said receipts win so many times it sounds like a joke. It isn't. Receipts are the way you slow your breathing down when someone calls you a predator from behind a keyboard. They're how you walk into a room that smells like toner and leave with an order that makes a deputy tape orange paper to a door that should have been yours the whole time. They're how you get your Tuesday back. A week after we stained the deck, I had a handful of neighbours over for burgers, because you mark the end of a mess by feeding the people who helped you sweep. Frank brought bratwursts he didn't charge me for. The denim jacket woman brought a potato salad that made everybody pronounce the word recipe like it was a question. The president came with no gavel, asked about the stain colour, and joked that the new sign by the road should say, "Welcome to Timber Ridge. Please don't make us pass a policy about you." It landed because it was true. As the light bled out of the trees, I ran my hand along the new rail and thought about the first day. Fresh paint I didn't approve. A Range Rover I didn't invite. A laugh I didn't deserve. I thought about Deputy Rose calm when she said, "Things break. Not like this." And Judge Kramer's voice when she said, "This is not a tenancy." I thought about Miguel's line, "2 coats tomorrow. Trim Tuesday." And how routine is the only real victory that lasts. You don't need to be loud to win. You need to be specific. If you've got an HOA or property nightmare with 1 or 2 documents that flipped it, utility start dates, a cached listing, a covenant clause, a county affidavit, drop your state below and comment receipts with exactly what saved you. I'm building a state-by-state cheat sheet, and I'll feature a few in a follow-up so the next person doesn't have to learn it in real time. Subscribe if you want more stories where the ending isn't rage. It's order on paper in a quiet porch. Next up if you want it. The day a board tried to lock a lake path across deeded land until riparian rights and a recorded plat said otherwise. Same receipts, bigger stakes. The ridge went dark. The porch light clicked on because I told it to. And for the first time since I clicked bid, the house didn't feel like a test. It felt like what it always should have been. A place to get better at being myself. One small fix at a time.